Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Recovery After Stroke podcast. Today, we've got a crucial topic that could be incredibly relevant to many of our listeners. If you've ever been informed that your blood is sticky or thicker than normal, or if you've experienced an ischemic stroke with an unknown cause known as cryptogenic, this episode is especially for you. And for those who've come across the MTHFR gene before and are uncertain about what the mutation means and what the potential health implications are, you're in the right place. We'll be delving into the consequences of the MTHFR gene mutation and how it may relate to various health issues related to stroke. Stick around as we unravel important insights in today's discussion. Now, also, I am so pleased to announce that the book is getting excellent reviews from stroke survivors from all around the world, and the most recent one being from Louisa, who says, I wanted to share with you that I finally was able to get your book delivered from Amazon, and may I tell you that I'm only on page 32 and I'm hooked. I love the way you tell your experiences. The book tells the story of 10 stroke survivors and the steps that they took that got them to the stage in their recovery where, from a personal growth perspective, they were able to transform stroke from the worst thing that happened to them into the best thing that happened to them. To find out more, go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book. This is episode 295, and my guest today is Amber Cocker, who experienced an ischemic stroke aged 30. Amber Corker, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for taking some time out of your work day to be here.
Not a problem. I'm happy to join you.
Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
Okay, let's see. This was 2016. I woke up on January 15th, and the right side of my face was numb. And on my way to work, I work for a university, and we have an employee health clinic. And on my way to work, I decided to stop in there, and the doctor did the normal, feeling of my face and raise your arms up, had me walk and talk and everything. And I remember distinctly him saying, well, we can rule out stroke.
Oh, wow.
And he said, I think you have a sinus infection. Okay. I went on to work and it didn't get any better. I noticed I'm left-handed. I noticed my handwriting was very bad. But I went on through the day, and the next morning it was a Saturday, and I woke up with double vision. And I wear contacts, and I had my glasses on, and I thought that it was something with my glasses. So I put my contacts in and still had double vision. And I was like, okay, there's something wrong. So I went to an urgent care walk-in clinic, and they told me I had a migraine. So they gave me migraine medicine. And this was over a Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. So everything's closed on Monday. But I went back to this urgent care on Monday, and I was like, how long is this supposed to take to work? Because like my vision's a little bit better, but like my face is still numb. And they were like, well, it should be working by now. They were like, you need to go see your doctor tomorrow. So I went to my primary care on Tuesday. So now, like we're 4 days in from whenever I woke up. And she ordered for me to have a CT, and I did that on Wednesday. And then it came back inconclusive. So then she ordered an MRI on Thursday. And that afternoon, it was late in the afternoon, she said, I need you to come to my office at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning to go over the results. So my husband and I went to, at this point, my son was a month shy from turning 1. So, I have an 11-month-old and then my husband. And so my husband and I went to her office at 8 o'clock. And she said, it appears you've had a stroke. And I'm like, it appears like either I did or I didn't. Like I'm, so she was like, I've scheduled you with our neurologist that's in town. I live in a fairly small community of 50,000 people. We had one neurologist in town. She said, I got you in on Monday for an appointment with the neurologist. She said, now over the weekend, I need you to stay calm. And I need you to not, your blood pressure can't rise. I need you to stay extremely calm. And I said, I'm 30 years old. I have an 11-month-old, and you just told me that I had a stroke. And you want me to stay calm over the weekend until I can go to see a neurologist? I was like, are you kidding me? Like, but I was like, okay, like I'll stay calm. And she said, if anything changes the way you feel, anything at all, you get a headache, like all of a sudden you can't move, one of your limbs the same way, anything at all changes, you go to the emergency room immediately. I said, okay. I had just started a new job here at the university. I had been working for the university for 4 years, but I just started a different job at the university. So I had to call my boss, who I'd been working for her for 3 months. And I was like, well, I can't come to work today because I had a stroke. And she was like, I'm sorry, you cut out. It sounded like you said you had a stroke. And I was like, that's what I said. And she was like, okay, I don't really know what to do with that. And I was like, me neither. So I'm sorry, but I'll be back on Monday. And she was like, I don't, I don't think you are going to be back on Monday. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know. So like, she's like, okay, well, just keep me posted, I guess. I'm like, okay. So that night, I wake up about 2 o'clock in the morning and I have a headache. So I wake my husband up and I'm like, I have a headache. So we call my parents to come and get my son and we go to the emergency room. And I had a wonderful doctor in the emergency room and they did another scan. They said, well, nothing new is happening. So I was like, okay. So, I'm there until who knows how long. And then I go back. So then the rest of the weekend is fine. Nothing else really different happens. And then we get to Monday and I'm taking a nap before my appointment. And it's like an hour before my appointment with the neurologist. And my mother-in-law was coming over to watch our son, and she had just arrived. And the neurologist's office calls and they said, well, the doctor just looked at your chart and he said not to come to the appointment, but to go to the emergency room because we don't have the stuff to, like, we don't have the equipment to deal with how severe your case is. She was like, we've called over there. They know you're coming. So you just need to go in there and tell them who you are. And so I'm like, okay. So I get up, I get my husband, we go back to the emergency room, and he goes up there and he says, this is Amber Coker. And they just go, okay. Like they had no idea why I was there. And he was like, well, she had a stroke and like bam, all bets were off. Everyone started moving. They're grabbing me, they're taking me back. They're like getting the wrist thing on, they're like getting me into a room. Then they start trying to like take off my clothes and get me hooked up and asking me all the questions to type into their thing. I had like 5 nurses in there, like all doing different stuff. And they're like pushing my husband out of the way. And like the doctor that I had seen Friday night, whenever I went in there, walks by and he's like, Amber, why are you here? And I was like, well, I was trying to explain to him, but everybody was like moving and talking, and he goes, everybody stop. And so everybody stops, and he was like, why are you here? And I said, my appointment was supposed to be, at 3:30. They called me and they said to come here instead. And he said, let me make some calls and find out what's going on, why they sent you here. They said, she's not having, he goes, she's not having a stroke right now, you guys. Like, she doesn't need like all of this. Like, just stop. So then we wait for 4 hours. Nobody tells us anything. We're just in the room for 4 hours. And finally, my husband goes out and he's like, um, what's going on? And they're like, oh, we're just waiting for a room to open up at OU Medical, which is in a big city in a different town. And it was like, because she's been admitted. And we're like, what? And so they transferred me down to Oklahoma City and they admitted me to the hospital. And that's where I met my neurologist that I had been with for 7.5 years, and where they did all of the testing. And I found out that I have the MTHFR mutation gene. So, um,
Stop there.
that's
Stop there.
yes.
Oh my God. So I'm listening to this and going, surely at some point they said, send it to the hospital before the 10 days. Someone
No.
said, go to the hospital. Someone said, go and get a scan at the hospital. Someone said, go and have an MRI. It's just ridiculous that it took so long and then it had to go around that massive loop to get you there. And it's
Yeah.
amazing how simple that seems, and yet how everyone missed the critical thing with you, which is to say you need to get to a hospital. That was it. I can't
Yes.
understand how that happens. It's so strange. And to say, to blame it on your medical system in America and all the problems over there and all that kind of junk, it's not fair because I hear it from people all over the world. It's just humans, it's just people that make uh the wrong call, and they I'm not sure what it is, but I can't even explain it, but it's so strange. I took 7 days to get to hospital because I was the idiot who decided that I was good enough not to go to hospital. Whereas in your case, you know you're unwell, you're feeling on it, everyone knows you're unwell, they do a scan, they confirm it, everything is supposed to be in your favor to say this lady needs some help. And instead of helping you, they told you to, I'll see you Monday, and
Mhm.
I won't be back for a little while. It's crazy. Now, I want
I
to
mean,
set,
looking back,
yeah,
I would have gone to the emergency room. Um, I don't know. I mean, now, like when my face was numb, or when I had double vision, instead of going to an urgent care or to, you know,
yeah,
the employee health clinic. However, I was still seeing a medical professional that I thought, well, if I go see them, then they'll tell me, like, if I need to go to the emergency room,
yeah,
which they didn't.
yeah. I
Um,
know that, I know that oh my gosh. The chances that somebody who hasn't had a stroke listens to this podcast, unless they're your friends and family, like is very low. Most of the people listening are stroke survivors and caregivers, and they probably all, like you and me, we know what to do now. But
right.
it'd be so good if we could just tell the people of the world, if you have these types of things happen to you, just go to a hospital. Don't wait 10 days before somebody sees you. Insist that somebody sees you. Man,
Mhm.
it's such a intense moment. I can't get over it. But I appreciate how it happens. And I'm glad that everything is worked out, and that you're here and you
Yes.
can join us, and
Yes.
all these amazing things
Yes.
have happened, right? So we've had a
Right.
really good outcome, all things considered. Um,
Yes.
my gosh. So the reason I wanted to really, really speak to you when you reached out was because you said something that nobody has ever said before about
Really?
the connection to stroke and the MTHFR gene. Now, most people listening won't know what the MTHFR gene is. However, I do know about the MTHFR gene a little
Okay.
bit, a little bit. The reason I know about it is because I tested positive for one copy of the gene. So I picked it up from one of my parents. And as a result of that gene, I have gone out of my way to change my diet to ensure that there's certain things I don't consume. Now, for people who are listening and have never heard of that and watching, can you tell us what the MTHFR gene is? And then we'll talk about why it's important to know whether you have this particular gene mutation and whether you have one copy or two copies.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Yes. MTHFR is methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, which is a huge mouthful, and it took me many years, even though I have it, to know exactly what it all stands for. And of course the acronym of the MTHFR is really fun, because you look at it and you think it could be something else, and
It could
and
too,
sometimes
yeah.
I feel like it is.
Yeah, it could
um,
too.
so the gene mutation causes the body not to not turn folate and folic acid into its active form, which increases homocysteine um, in your homocysteine levels in your body, which irritates your arteries, which can cause blood clots.
Wow.
And
Okay, let's pause there.
there are,
Let's pause there
okay.
for a sec. Okay, so the MTHFR gene, you can pick it
Mhm,
up. You can pick it up from your parents as a result of that.
mhm,
When both of your parents have the gene and you have the gene,
mhm.
what that does is you need to be aware of it because there's certain foods that you cannot do well with. You can't break down, you can't process them in your body. Now, when I say foods, not necessarily foods, but ingredients in foods. And one of those
Right.
ingredients, folic acid, which is
Yes.
the synthetic form of folate, which
Mhm,
is used specifically for women who are going to be pregnant or are pregnant to
are pregnant.
decrease the chances of neural birth defects in their children.
Mhm,
And then as a result of that, um, in order for women to get a lot of folic acid and folate through their diet, because usually it's found in leafy greens, silver beet, a whole bunch of other, lovely leafy greens. Um, what they do is what the people that know better do is they put a folic acid in bread, in flour, and all flour has uh, added folic acid, and the purpose of that is to decrease the chance of neural birth defects. I know it happens in a lot of Western countries. It definitely happens in Australia. And as a result of that, people who have the MTHFR gene that don't know are perhaps getting over, what's the word? Over exposed to folic acid,
Yes,
and they shouldn't be. They should be avoiding it.
right.
Did I say it well?
Yes, yes. Another thing, along with just what the folic acid that they put into food for women who are pregnant, especially during the first trimester, they suggest them taking a folic acid supplement, or also in just a regular prenatal vitamin, they have a high, high doses of folic acid, um, which if you have MTHFR, and I don't know exactly this part, I'm not real sure about, but
Mhm.
if you have MTHFR, um, you have a higher chance of miscarriage because of the amounts of folic acid that you have, um, and that you're taking, especially during the first trimester, due, due to your folic acid supplement or your prenatal vitamin, and it can cause miscarriage. And that was one of the first questions after my blood test came back that my neurologist asked me. He said, "How many miscarriages did you have before you had your son?" And I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, "I didn't have any." And he was shocked. Like, that shook him to his core. Like, he didn't, because he just knew. He just knew. I had to have had several miscarriages before I had my son. Um, and I was like, "I didn't have any." And he was like, "How many miscarriages did your mom have?" And I said, "Well, she had two." I was like, "She had one before my brother, and she had one before me." And he was like, "Okay." And then he seemed to calm back down. Like, he was like, "Okay, my world is back in order." He was like, "You were lucky." And I was like, I mean, I was lucky, but um, so that's another thing that it causes, because your body is not breaking down that folic acid and folate, it can cause miscarriages as well.
Yeah. So just so we really explain things really well, you had a specific stroke that that has a particular title, which is basilar artery thrombosis. Is that right?
Yes.
Did I say it
I
well?
had I had a blood clot in my basilar artery.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. And
it was just an ischemic stroke.
yep.
That was just the fancy term of the location of where my blood clot was.
Okay. Okay. No worries. So that is not linked to the particular MTHFR gene. The location is just the location. It's where the blood clot ended up anyway. Okay.
Yes.
So your doctor is pretty switched on. Does he give you the details about the MTHFR gene? How does he take you through that discussion? Because you've never heard of it before.
Oh gosh, no. No. And I don't like, no, I had no idea. My husband actually recorded on his phone the whole thing whenever he came in, but it ended up being like an hour and a half of explanation. Um, quite honestly, and I think my brain did this kind of to protect itself. I don't remember exactly how the whole conversation went, but yes, he did come in and he did explain it. The way he explained it to me the first time around was, that the it because the folate and folic acid does not break down, it makes your blood sticky,
Uh-huh.
which it makes it more prone to clots, is how he explained it. And that's kind of real basic terms. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but that's the way he explained it. he said that since, and he's a very, very well respected and very, you know, very good neurologist, and he has practiced all over the United States. And he said when he moved to Oklahoma, he saw more cases of MTHFR than he had ever seen.
Wow.
And he thought that it had something to do with the Native American blood.
Okay.
Um, he has no science to back that up. That was just kind of his thought.
Uh-huh.
Um, but that he found it very interesting that whenever he moved to this part of the country, that he saw a lot more of it. Um,
Is there
I
a
am
large,
homozygous.
I was going to say, is there a large Native American community in Oklahoma?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you have Native American ancestry?
I do. I do. It's not strong. I think I'm like 128th or something.
Okay.
Um, so it's not like I am half or a fourth. But I think pretty much everyone that if they were born in Oklahoma or one of the surrounding states probably has somewhere in their lineage some Native American blood. Just because this part of the country was, Native American land for so
Hmm.
long.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, I have two copies of the mutation.
Okay.
So
What does that mean?
that means that I got a copy from my mom and I got a copy from my dad. So I was the lucky one. And because I am homozygous, which means that I have the two copies. If you just have one, then you're heterozygous.
Hmm.
Um, I can't just manage it with diet. Um, Heterozygous, which my son obviously is heterozygous. Um, Clearly he was going to get one copy from me because I have two. So he had no choice. He was going to get one. We had him tested, obviously, and he does just have the one copy. So his can be controlled with diet and hydration. Um,
When
but
you say
I also, Mhm,
heterozygous, hetero
mhm,
means one, homo means two.
mhm.
Okay. I just need to remember all this because I keep forgetting. And guess what? Guess what I just remembered, which is really
What?
interesting. I just remembered that my dad takes a blood thinner.
Yeah.
And the
Yes.
reason my dad takes a blood thinner, which I did not know about um, for many years until I was an adult, is because the only way my dad can describe it is because my blood is a little bit sticky or thicker.
Hmm.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. That's fascinating. So, what I'm then certain of is that my children, I've got to now confirm again whether or not I'm heterozygous or homozygous. I can't remember now. Now I can't remember. So I've got to confirm that. And then I've got to speak to my children about that. And you said that your son, since he's got one copy,
Mhm.
he can manage it with diet. Now, what does that mean? How do you manage that with diet?
Being aware of the ingredients of what he is eating, of how much folic acid he's taking, and hydration. That was one thing that the uh, the doctors said is staying hydrated. If you're hetero, you just have the one copy. Hydration plays a very large part in keeping that under control because it keeps the blood moving smoothly
Mm-hmm.
through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because the more dehydrated you get, the more likely that that stickiness is gonna, you know, come
Um,
through.
mm-hmm.
So, staying hydrated and not taking hormones. Guys, males when they're teens, they want to take those testosterone type, those things to bulk up or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I've had to make it. My son is only 9 now, but we've already started the conversations of like you can't do that. Like you have to stay like when he plays soccer. And you have to stay very hydrated. You have to drink lots of water whenever you are playing. And when you get old, and he doesn't understand it now, but I started early talking when people start talking about taking supplements and stuff to bulk up or be faster or whatever, like you cannot do that. Like you can't do it. Like
Yeah.
and he knows about my stroke, and he knows, like, I've told him all about it, and, um, so I think he understands, but we started real early talking about that stuff, so
I love
hopefully
it.
it sticks as he gets older.
I love that you started so early because I think about now, everything's coming back to me. All the people that I've interviewed that have had a stroke that has got apparently no cause. They've had an ischemic stroke and they have been told that it is a stroke that they can't find the cause for, that they have no idea why it happened, and there's nothing we can do, and all that type of thing. And I'm thinking about that now, and it's like, wow, these people may have had an
They
MTHFR
should
gene
have their
issue.
blood tested.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. Well,
It
anyone
can be it can be tested by, just a blood test. There's a specific it's not a specific test that they run just like in a normal blood test, but I don't know exactly what it is
Hmm,
um, that they call it, but you can ask, I need to be tested for the MTHFR
yeah.
mutation.
Yep. Yep. Oh man, if you're a
Whenever
stroke
I was
survivor,
going through it, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, people who are listening and watching, if you're a stroke survivor who's had a stroke and it has been an ischemic stroke and they're not certain as to why it happened, go to your doctor Monday morning and ask for a MTHFR gene test. Whatever it costs, get it done, because this is one awesome way to prevent further strokes from happening, especially if you've had a an ischemic stroke.
It is also a way to help prevent your family members from having a stroke, possibly.
Yeah. Uh,
So,
Amber, I can't believe it. I'm just so stunned. It's something that I've known for many, many years, and nobody, the people who told me that I had the MTHFR gene just explained to me that I should avoid folic acid, and that's going to help me with my energy levels, methylate things better and absorb the energy from my food and process that and turn it into energy. And that makes complete sense to me, but they didn't give the other deeper explanation as to what the purpose of avoiding folic acid was. So I imagine when you guys go shopping, are you guys forever turning the pack around and looking at the ingredients list and going, that's out?
no, we probably should be, but um, we look more at vitamins, w- like just like the daily vitamins that my son takes and that I take, just making sure that it's not one that has folic acid in it. That's more of what we do. Um, and then, I mean, I'm aware of it. I mean, I do kind of look to see um, every once in a while, but it's the diet part is not really um, the part that I focus on a whole lot. I probably should, but I don't.
Okay. All right.
Um,
Yeah, fair enough. I was just curious how you guys go about living with that kind of information. I know you shouldn't be over, what's the word, like anxious about it and think about nothing else all day, every day. I know that you should not be like that. And I don't. I just go about my life as per normal. And I definitely eat foods that contain folic acid, as little
mhm.
as possible, but I do from time to time,
Right.
especially sometimes bread. Usually I avoid bread like the Prague, pastas, all that kind of stuff. Anything that has flour, wheat flour in it, I avoid. But every once in a while, I'm going to have some. And I don't think that type of amount of folic acid intake is going to make a difference to my
Right, right.
health and well-being, down the track, because I'm not consuming too much of it. Um, Now, what annoys me about this whole folic acid issue is that put it in bread so that women can avoid neural birth defects. Well, men don't need folic acid to that extent for that reason. So it's like real
Right, right.
weird that let's dose the whole population when really only half the population, well, not even half, but we'll say half the population benefits from having it. And I say not even half because uh, some people don't need additional folic acid in their diet.
Correct.
They've got healthy levels regardless of whether they're consuming it in this form in their foods. So it's a really weird thing that governments do. Let's put a chemical in the food for everybody to consume and then just assume it's going to be fine. It's
Oh,
strange.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. With the stroke, so what did you end up coming home with that you had to recover from or overcome? Did you have deficits that you had to deal with? I know that you initially noticed the numbness in your face, and that was there while you were trying to get the diagnosis. What happened after that?
Um, when I came home, eventually, the numbness lasted probably about a month, slowly kind of going away. Um, I had weakness in my left arm, and I felt basically my whole left side. I felt like I walked funny, and that was something in going in Walmart, uh, walking with my husband. I was like, "Does do I look funny? Like, do I look like I'm walking funny?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "Because it feels weird. I feel like I'm not walking right." And he was like, "You look fine. Like, you look like you're walking just fine." Like, so it was very strange to me, to do that. I also, with the weakness in my left hand, which I'm left-handed, I had to do a lot of physical therapy with, strengthening my left hand. And it took a long time for my handwriting to go back to normal. So
Okay.
I do struggle with words at times, and
Reading words or speaking words?
speaking words.
They are
So
on the tip of your tongue, they can't come out,
mhm.
or do you not know which word to use?
I know what I want to say, but I just have trouble getting it to come out.
Hmm.
And that's actually, I started following your page on Instagram very shortly after my stroke. And I would see it as I'm scrolling through, I would see like a post, and I'd be like, "Oh." And it wasn't um just shortly before I reached out to you to tell you about my stroke, I saw a post of yours that said, like, if you had a stroke while you were asleep, do you have sleep anxiety? And I was like, well, yeah. Oh, wow. I wonder if that's why I don't sleep. And I was like, huh. And I just kind of went on. And then a little while later, I was scrolling through. A few days later, I saw you say something about, like, do you notice your deficits more when you're acutely stressed? And I was like, yes, like when I'm highly emotional, like angry or upset, I have a very hard time finding the words that I'm trying to say. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And that's whenever I was like, "You know what? I'm go to this website." And I've been following you for years, and I just kind of scroll through. I'd read it. Sometimes I would read the comments, see what everybody else was saying, but just kind of going on through. but it wasn't until those 2 that I kind of just, like, stopped, and that's when I went to your website and I listened to podcasts, and then I saw about, like, being a guest, and then I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna tell them about my story." I mean, who knows, and wonder if you've ever heard of MTHFR, because I sure hadn't, you know? But it was those 2 things that, so yeah, my speech, the trying to find a word, that is one thing that I do struggle with, so.
Yeah. They're interesting questions. They don't come from me. They come from my people who I coach that are trying to overcome their deficits and their stroke. And they make sense to me when I read them and when I ask people, because I notice that I also get my deficits get worse when I get highly emotional. I notice how they get worse when I don't have a good night's sleep, that kind of thing, which makes sense. But sometimes they seem like they're, for me, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's no big deal. That's normal. I get it. And then I realize that people like you go, "Oh my God, nobody ever asked me that question." Of course, that yes, that is, and then they connect the dots, and then that somehow makes things better or different or helps them adjust or change something. One of the strangest thing one of my stroke survivors who I coach said was that she hears noises in the affected side, like voices from other people in just the affected ear. So she doesn't have any ear problem per se, but on the stroke side that is affected, she hears noises, words, people talking, and it's driving her bananas, she says. And she goes, "Is that
Huh.
normal?" I was like, "I've got no idea. I don't know what that is, but let me ask the community. They'll tell us whether it's normal." And sure enough, I asked a question, and bang, people are going, "Yep, I hear noises, I hear voices, I hear things since my stroke in my ears that I never heard before." And what that did, it seemed to just settle people down about it. It seemed to
Oh,
go,
yeah.
"Oh, okay, it happens to other people. Oh, it's just a result of the stroke." Some people played it down, "Oh, it's nothing really. They're not gonna ignore it." And it's like, wow, yes. I mean, it's such my stroke survivors who I'm coaching and the people who are listening are a wealth of knowledge, and, I really truly
Oh,
appreciate the sharing of that knowledge because I learn so much from it, and then we can help other people. But this is really important. The MTHFR gene is really important for people to know about. And if they do get tested, if they do get tested, it just gives you a little bit more information. It's not invasive. It's not hard to deal with when
no.
you know about it. You can just take small preventative steps, especially if you're the kind of person who's already trying to prevent another stroke happening. Um, I think it's really important. And I love the fact that you had the good fortune after all of that story to end up in the right uh, doctor's surgery and then speak to the right neurologist who knew about that condition and was able to really give you a lot of information that you can then share on to the
I
next
I loved
generation.
my neurologist.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved him. He recently went to a veterans hospital, just within the last 6 months, and so since I'm not a veteran, I can't see him anymore, so I have a new one, but I mean, he was with me. I just happened to be very lucky that he was the one working the inpatient hospital that day, and that he was a strokeologist, what he says,
Yeah.
that he specializes in strokes, and that I came in that day. And then because he sees patients, outpatients in the clinic too. So I was with him for 7.5 years before he moved over to the Veterans Hospital.
So
Um,
even though you're 7.5 years out, or it's 2016, so
8 years. Yeah.
8 years out now, are you still getting regular visits with your neurologist and scans and all that kind of stuff? How are you managing this?
I don't get regular scans, but I do go see my neurologist once a year. Um, just to do well, my neurologist also treats me for migraines, and so when I go more like right now I'm going more than once a year, but that's just for migraine stuff, but for stroke stuff, it's once a year, just to do the typical like da 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 da, make sure that everything, this thing. And if anybody that's gone to the neurologist, if you don't, if you don't have to do all of this, like
Touch your
I don't.
nose, touch your
Oh yes,
fingers.
yes, all of the different things. So I do go once a year for that. Because I am on a blood thinner. Um, and it's been working great, for 8 years. Um, yes, I do go once a year, and I will be on a blood thinner for the rest of my life,
Mm.
and I will probably see a neurologist. Let's see, what did he tell me? He said that I could go out 18 to 24 months at max at some point, but I've always said I feel better going once a year. That's just kind of like I feel better with the 12 months
Yeah.
going in, just making sure. So,
Yeah, that's all good. Always good to go to the doctor once every
yeah.
12 months to just do a checkup, do some bloods, do touch
Mhm.
base and make sure everything's going well. I think that's great. Um, so what was the hardest thing about this stroke for you?
Um, I would say initially the hardest thing was knowing that I had a blood clot in my brain, and that it was just there, and at any point something could happen. I was what my hospital in town calls a frequent flyer in the emergency room for 8 months after, because every time something felt weird in my head, I went to the emergency room. I had more CTs and more MRIs in the 8 months after than any one person probably would have in 3 lifetimes.
Hmm.
Like, um, until 8 months out, one of the times that I went, and when I went, I told them, I said, I know that I sound crazy. Like, I know that, but something is off, and this is my history, and I need you to tell me that I'm not having another stroke. Like that's what I need.
I like that.
And that
Oh.
at that 8 month mark, they did a scan, and he said, I don't see anything. And I said, except for the blood clot. And he said, there's no blood clot. And I said, what do you mean there's no blood clot? And he was like, there's no clot on this scan. And I said, you mean it's dissipated? And he was like, I don't know. I'm just telling you, like, there is no blood clot in your brain. After that, I was fine.
Mm,
I
mm.
didn't go back. I didn't have to go back to the emergency room every time, that something felt off. So initially, it was that fear of, when is the next one going to happen? After that, it was, um, the hardest thing was knowing that my life was not going to be the way I planned it. Because I was advised not to have any more children, which was not part of my plan. I never thought that I would have an only child. I never wanted to have an only child. And so that was the hardest part, was trying to adjust to that. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's a tough one. Why would they say that that was advised? That why did they advise against that?
they said that I needed it had to be extremely planned, extremely monitored, There could be no accidents. It had to be a very rigid and structured conception, everything. And even then, they would have to, it would be weekly visits with a specialist
Mm.
for the whole time. Um,
They're thinking
there
about,
would be,
they're clearly thinking about miscarriages and
yes,
challenges to you.
miscarriages and then bleeding out later on.
Right.
Because
Wow.
I would have to stay on some type of a blood thinner. I would be switched from Eliquis to a different one,
Okay.
but then it would be constantly checking. And they did say you absolutely can. However, it is extremely high risk.
Okay. Okay. So there's two things that are going against you, so to speak, is the MTHFR gene mutation that you carry. And then it's also the fact that you're on a blood thinner to help make sure
Mhm.
that your blood doesn't clot. And in the event of the MTHFR gene uh, causing challenges to your pregnancy, and then there being a situation where there's some kind of a complication to that, that your biggest
Mhm.
risk after that is bleeding out uh, because
Mhm.
you're on a blood thinner.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Which seems kind of contradictory, because
Yeah.
on one hand they're afraid of clotting, so
Take
then on one
this.
hand they're afraid of bleeding out. So um
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
but
Okay.
it was
So,
one of those things where it was if you do this, it has to be before you're 35.
right.
So it was
So,
one of those conversations we had to have every single time I went in.
did you have an OBYGN involved in this particular conversation, or did that happen without?
No, because we never got that far to where I said, because it was more of a struggle between um me and my husband and my neurologist, that between the three of us, trying before we could even get to the next step of bringing in an OBGYN to, a high risk specialist for that. So
OBGYN. I said OBYGN. Anyway, um, your neurologist seems like an amazing, amazing doctor.
he is. He is.
Yeah, that's just, he's got so many other things that are going on that he's aware of that he needs to make sure that you're advised of, so
Mhm,
that he manages your health and well-being way beyond just what you guys discovered with the gene, and that he knows like what the complications are for you down the track should you choose to go down a certain path. And
mhm,
it's a big uh it's a big call to say to somebody, um you probably shouldn't have another child, but he's not saying that. What he's saying is you should be fully aware of the risks, you should make a fully
mhm,
informed decision, and these are the chances, these are the risks that you
mhm.
face over and above what, say, quote unquote, a normal person who doesn't
Right.
have these conditions will face. And I love that about him because there's not many people who have that foresight, that do that kind of deep thinking about what the future holds for somebody who's, in their 30s.
Right. He he is an outstanding doctor.
Hmm.
And ultimately he did leave the decision up to me and my husband.
Mm,
And
mm.
my husband said, I do not want to have a toddler and an infant and no wife.
That's a
So
fair comment.
and right at first, I was going every 3 months, every 6 months, for a long time, the every 6 months, and then I graduated to like yearly. But for a while there, we were going a lot, and every single time it was like, do we need to talk? do we need to have another pregnancy talk? Are we going to do it? Like, are we talking about it this time? And every time we would look at each other and we like no, because we weren't talking about it. And finally, at the last one, when I was 34, he said, "This is it. Are we doing this?" And I said, and at this point, I had come to terms with it, and I said, "No, we're not." And my husband goes, "Well," and I looked at him, and my eyes got huge, and the choice words that came out of my mouth, and I was like, "You have got to be kidding me." And he was like, "Well, like now it's like for real." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know it's for real." Like, and I was like, "Are you?" And I was like, "No, we're not doing this." Because at this point, now my son is talking and he's out of diapers and he's getting ready to start school. And so I'm like, I'm not starting over. like,
Yeah.
like I'm done with that. And I had already come to terms with it. So I was like, no, nope, we're not. We're not having it. Like we've decided we're done. And so my doctor, he just laughed and he was just like, "I love you guys so much." He was like, "You guys are the highlight of my day when you come in."
you're you're fair enough as well to give him the dirty look. It, he didn't realize it was for real because he's a male and he doesn't have the any of the things that go along with the we'll call it the natural cycle that women go through where it ends
Yeah.
eventually, the opportunity ends. Doesn't have that. He's never thought about that because he doesn't have to think about that. He just goes about life
Yeah,
going,
that's true.
yeah, that'll be good. And then he goes, oh no, I think I'm going to change my mind now. Well, Amber, are you on board? Come on. um but I get what he's thinking. But you're right as well, is that your life when you've got young children, if you've got them young together, it's chaotic and it's terrible and it's difficult and it's amazing and it's lovely. But it ends the chaos ends very rapidly because both children go through their phases very close together, and then you're kind of
Mhm.
free. You get your life back. You start sleeping
Yes.
more. You do all these things, and then I know because I've got some friends who've got children that are 5, 6, 7 years after the,
Oh,
the the previous one, and the all that pain and suffering of having lovely, beautiful, gorgeous children gets extended and it gets drawn out, and you're in the twilight zone for too long. Um, and I see them, so I know what you mean. I totally get what you mean, and I think you've made the right decisions either way. You made the right decisions to look after your health and to honor his first request, which was, I don't want a toddler and a baby and no wife. Like all those things, they're
mhm.
really important things to consider. And I think you
Oh,
guys have gone about it.
absolutely.
You guys have gone about it the right way. They're hard decisions to make. Uh, so what stroke taught you?
A couple of different things. One is to do what you want and do what makes you happy because, you don't know what the future holds and life is short and you never know what's going to happen. And the other thing is it's taught me to give myself grace. Um, give my give myself grace in everything, in adjusting to what my new life is going to look like, and um, give myself grace in adjusting to any deficits, and to, you know, to just be patient with myself, just like I would with other people.
Are you real
So,
hard on yourself normally?
yes, yes. And I did not like not being able to bounce back just right away into what was normal. And um that I didn't like that, and I had to really adjust my mindset of, it's okay because this really huge thing happened to your brain, which can alter absolutely everything about you. Um, so I like it's okay that you're not just, just like that back to how everything was.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's really good to have, to give yourself grace. I meet a lot of people who say something similar, who uh, are not patient, who give themselves deadlines. Some people act like their worst boss would act to them in a work environment. You know, they have all these expectations, all these deadlines, and it's like, this is not a broken foot. You don't have you don't go to the doctor, get a scan, get a cast. They put it on 6 weeks, come back, take the cast off, do a little bit of rehabilitation, and you're back to normal. It doesn't. It's not how it
yeah,
goes
no,
at all.
no, no. It's a lifelong alteration,
Mm, mm,
whatever your deficit may be, or even if you don't have any, there's always that, there's always that something. I mean, it's an alteration of your outlook on
mm.
life as well. And it's lifelong. It's not just something that can, slap a cast on and then you're good to go. Like,
It's like for me. I
yeah.
describe it as it's like having like a scar, a really serious scar that you got early
Mhm.
on in your life. And even though the scar technically
Yes.
has healed over and it's gone, like you can see the scar every
Mhm.
day. And every day the scar reminds you of where you got that scar and how you got that scar. And sometimes you don't notice it, but sometimes you really notice it and you remember that that scar happened and this is the way that it happened. Now, scars fade, which is really cool, right? They fade and they
Right.
get less obvious. And
Mhm.
that's how stroke kind of evolves. It can, for very, very many people, fade, get less, take less space up in the front of your mind, and it can just sort of head
Mhm.
to the background a little bit. And it does do that. Uh, but yes, most people I've spoken to have had a stroke that are 5, 10, 15, 20 years out, all talk about it still as if it's something that they're dealing with, managing, overcoming, moving beyond,
Mhm.
living with.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
That I mean, it's just you live with it. So,
yeah. Move on, eh? What's what's something that you want to tell some other people who are listening, that may have been through something similar to you, obviously with regards to the stroke, but then obviously with the news that maybe you should avoid uh, future pregnancies, that kind of thing. What kind of advice would you like to leave them if somebody has been given that type of information and it's just fresh for them now?
it's okay to mourn the life you thought you were gonna have, or the future children that you thought that you might have. Like, that's okay. It's okay to do that. Um, that just because you haven't had them doesn't mean that it's not a loss for you. So, grieve however you need to, and take the time that you need to adjust to what your new life is going to look like. I can't imagine at this point having any other children other than my son. I was meant to be the mother of an only child. I was meant to only have a boy. I always thought I wanted a girl. I don't know what I would do with the girl. I have no idea. And so it's although it's not something that I would have chose to only have one, it was the right thing for me. But like I said, it took 4 years for me to get the initial, "Hey, you probably shouldn't do this," and all of the risks and everything, to that final appointment where I had come to terms with it and I said, "No, like, final answer, we're not doing this." It took 4 years for me to get there, and that's okay. It's okay if it takes you a long time, and it's okay if it takes you longer than 4 years. You grieve however you need to.
Yeah. I do like that, giving people that space to take to let the process just take the course that it needs to take. That's
Mhm.
really important. And in that time, for some people, you might need therapy. You might want to go and chat to somebody about that,
Yeah.
support groups. You might need to do all of that stuff, which is all fine. And that will help. So I love that gift of giving people the time that it takes. And we don't know what the length of that is. It's just however long it takes for you, it takes.
Yeah.
No problem.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for reaching out and joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot today, and it's very rarely that I connect the dots in, things that I've read about. Because I read about the MTHFR gene 12 years ago. It's very rarely that I can then connect the dots and then make that a really good, compelling story and give people a lot of amazing information about what they can do to protect themselves from avoiding another stroke, perhaps. And that's
Well,
and that's what I said earlier about how the community knows, and all I've got to do is ask. And I just love the fact that you knew that, and that you could tell that. I don't like the fact that you had to go through a hard time to find that out, but
no.
I appreciate that you're willing to share it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us on today's episode. I hope you learned something new. To get a copy of my book, go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book. To learn more about my guests, including links to their social media, and to download a transcript of the entire interview, please go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episode. Thank you to everyone that has already left a review. It means the world to me. Podcasts live and thrive because of reviews. And when you leave a review, you're helping others in need of this type of content to find it easier. And that is making a massive difference in their recovery. If you haven't left a review and would like to leave one, the best way to do it is leave a 5-star review and a few words about what the show means to you on iTunes and Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below the video. I love responding to comments on our YouTube videos. If you are a stroke survivor with a story to share about your experience, come and join me on the show. The interviews are not scripted. You do not have to plan for them. All you need to do is be a stroke survivor who wants to share your story in the hope that it will help somebody else going through something similar. To connect with me, just go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, fill out the contact form, and I will be in touch with more details about how we can connect via Zoom. Thanks again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamas. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.